Welcome back to Valley Core. Today we look at something fucking interesting in terms of international news, and that would be a self-coup from South Korea's president, or at least that's what some people are calling it. Let's quickly check how we even got here. In the lead up to the recent martial law declaration in South Korea, the country found itself in a period of extreme political tension. President Yoon Suk-yeol, I have no fucking idea how to pronounce that, from the Conservative People Power Party, or short PPP, was clashing with the Liberal Democratic Party, or short DP, which controls the 300-seat National Assembly. These tensions were mostly driven by the DP's push, come on, to impeach government officials with accusations of corruption and abuses of power against Yoon's administration. Amidst growing protests, which often turned violent, and a breakdown in government relations, Yoon accused the opposition of undermining the state by manipulating legislation and obstructing the government's function. So I think we're all kind of on the same page on how we even got up to the point that Yoon declared martial law. It was, as said, mainly because of this political standoff, which led to calls for impeachment.
Relax.
Which further complicated the relationship between the opposition and the ruling party, and in response to that, Yoon declared the martial law, invoking it under the pretext of national emergency, which of course the opposition did not like at all. Making matters even worse, South Korea's Minister of Defense backed President Yoon. A martial law commander was appointed, meaning that the army would partake in this, let's say, self-coup or whatever you want to call it, and messages started flooding in that the military would reportedly start enacting censorship against the media soon. Things started getting even more real when the newly appointed martial law commander, Park and-soo, began listing off banned things like all rallies, protests, political meetings, and even the National Assembly. The media was now under martial law censorship too, as they had previously said they planned. Nonetheless, right after this declaration, small protests broke out and military vehicles like APCs and IFVs, so armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles, flooded into Seoul. Along with these images came unconfirmed claims of parts of the military revolting against the deployment and martial law declaration, but those remained unconfirmed. The next big move was South Korean special forces being deployed around Parliament, and they were likely told to go inside and seize control in favor of the martial law. These actions led to small clashes between operators and protesters, but as you can see on the videos and as I saw, this was nothing big or nothing of big significance. So now you might ask, why the fuck would they want to seize control of Parliament? Well, it's pretty simple. If martial law is declared, the Parliament can vote to lift it if an absolute majority agrees. And guess who holds the majority? That's right, the opposition. At around 4:20 PM, reports came in of gunshots heard in Seoul, but I didn't see any video or confirmed incidents of shootings, so I can't confirm this for certain. A few minutes later, the South Korean opposition leader Lee Jae-myung publicly declared that President Yoon was no longer the president of the country. Of course, that had no real effect yet. Since the military was blocking off Parliament and breaking into the building by force, oppositionists barricaded themselves inside. And no shit, the opposition leader climbed the wall and snuck into Parliament, which shows how fucking great of a job the military was doing, especially since he wasn't even the first one to do it. This meant the opposition had to get in by any means necessary to vote to lift the martial law, since this is a constitutional provision that cannot be blocked. A win was certain too, since they have the majority in Parliament. Based on that, Parliament held an emergency meeting, and it looked like parts of the police and military just stood there letting democracy take its course. Then came the massive news. Parliament voted to revoke martial law 190 to 0, with an extremely high chance of impeachment following for the president after it all is over. Only 151 votes were needed, so it's fucking incredible that 100 190 parliamentarians made it in despite the blockades. Live streams showed police and military just standing around, not sure what to do now or who to follow. And then the bad news came right in. South Korea's Ministry of Defense and Military declared that martial law would stay in place until President Yoon lifted himself. Even worse, the military broke into opposition leader Lee's home with plans to arrest him. This fate was also planned for other oppositionists, as CCTV footage confirmed arrest teams moving in and around the parliament. Following this, South Korea's worker unions declared nationwide strikes until the next morning, and protests kept going strong even at 4 AM in Korea. But here's the twist. The good news came in extremely fast too. President Yoon suddenly announced that martial law would be lifted as soon as enough people were present at the State Council to do so. At about 4:30 AM Korean time, President Yoon announced the lifting of martial law and showed he accepted Parliament's decision. With this message, it was officially over and the bad news stopped. At least for now. What I can already see roughly one day after the main events unfolded are messages that the 6 main parties, including the main opposition party, have already submitted a bill for the impeachment of President Yoon because they call what he did a self-inflicted coup, and that he plunged the country into chaos by suddenly declaring the martial law. So I'm interested, what is your opinion on the events that unfolded? You can happily drop it down in the comments, and I thank you for staying till the end, and you better come the fuck back for the next one. We'll probably look at the first use of biological weapons in a war in history, and trust me, that shit was earlier than you think. See you next time.